The letter fell from my trembling fingers like a dead bird hitting concrete. Asterisk, my dearest Elena, every day I wake up wishing I had chosen you instead of Sarah. She'll never love you the way I do. After she inherits her grandmother's money, we can finally be free together. Asterisk. My husband's handwriting. My sister's name. My world shattering into 1,000 bloody pieces. I could taste copper in my mouth, had I bitten my tongue? The bathroom tiles felt ice-cold against my knees as I collapsed, Marcus's sock drawer still hanging open like a gaping wound above me. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of I love you whispered in the dark. 5 years of planning our future, our babies, our forever. All lies. The house was dead silent except for the sound of my heart breaking, actually breaking, like something vital tearing inside my chest. I pressed my palm against my mouth to stop the scream building in my throat. Elena's perfume still lingered in our hallway from yesterday's visit. Sweet jasmine mixed with betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, working late again tonight, beautiful. Love you. Another lie. Another knife. I knew where he really was. Who he was really with. The restaurant receipts I'd found made sense now. The late nights. The way he'd started saying Elena's name in his sleep. But they didn't know about the inheritance yet. $2 million Grandma Rose left me, arriving next week. They thought I was just the naive wife who'd hand over everything when they broke my heart. They had no idea what Grandma Rose had taught me about revenge. 3 months before I found that letter, I was living in what I believed was my perfect love story. Every morning, Marcus would kiss my forehead before his alarm even went off. Good morning, beautiful, he'd whisper, his voice still thick with sleep. I'd make his coffee exactly how he liked it, 2 sugars, splash of cream, while he showered, and we'd sit at our little kitchen table reading the news on our phones, our feet touching under the table. We should go to Italy for our 6th anniversary, he said one Tuesday morning, showing me pictures of Tuscany on his screen. Just you and me, no distractions. I leaned over to kiss his cheek, tasting the mint of his toothpaste, feeling so grateful for this man who still planned romantic getaways after 5 years of marriage. Our house was everything I'd dreamed of growing up in foster care: white picket fence, rose bushes by the front door, a kitchen island where we'd cook dinner together on Sundays. Marcus would dance me around the living room to old jazz records, dipping me dramatically until I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. I want to fill this house with babies, I'd whisper during those quiet moments, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. 3 kids, at least. He'd stroke my hair and murmur agreement, talking about converting the spare room into a nursery, about teaching our children to ride bikes in our driveway. Elena visited every weekend without fail. My little sister, though at 26, she wasn't so little anymore, would burst through our door with homemade cookies or some new story from her job at the art gallery. She'd hug Marcus hello, always holding on just a beat longer than normal, but I thought it was sweet how well they got along. You're so lucky, Sarah, she'd say, watching Marcus grill burgers in our backyard. He's perfect for you. I'd squeeze her hand, grateful to finally have family who loved me, who chose to be in my life every single week. Sunday dinners were sacred. Elena would set the table while I cooked, and Marcus would pour wine, telling us about his latest construction projects. We'd play board games afterward, Elena and Marcus always teaming up against me, laughing when they won. Dream team, Elena would say, high-fiving my husband. I'd pretend to pout, but secretly loved watching my 2 favorite people bond. I was finally building the family I'd never had. After 18 years bouncing between foster homes, never knowing if I'd be moved again, I had stability. Love. A future that felt solid and real. The only shadow was Grandma Rose's empty chair at holidays. She'd been gone 2 years, but I still missed her fierce hugs, her stories about surviving the depression, her way of seeing right through people's lies. Trust your gut, Sarah girl, she used to say. It never lies, even when your heart wants to. But my heart felt so full those days. Marcus would catch me staring at him sometimes and ask what I was thinking. Just how happy I am, I'd tell him, and he'd pull me close, promising he felt the same way. If I'd listened to Grandma Rose's voice in my head, maybe I would have noticed the cracks sooner. It was Elena's laugh that first made my stomach twist. We were at Marcus's company barbecue, one of those forced fun corporate events where wives smile and pretend to care about quarterly reports. I was getting us drinks when I heard it, Elena's laugh, but different. Breathier. The way she used to laugh at boys in high school when she had a crush. I turned around, 2 beers sweating in my hands, and saw them by the pool. Marcus was telling some story, his hands animated, and Elena was hanging on every word like he was reciting poetry. Her body angled toward him, her fingers playing with her necklace, the same nervous habit she'd had since we were kids whenever she liked someone. "Your sister's sweet," Marcus's boss said, appearing beside me. "How long has she been dating your husband's brother?" My blood went cold. Marcus doesn't have a brother. Oh. His face flushed red. I just assumed, they seemed so close. I watched them across the yard. Elena touched Marcus's arm while she laughed, and he didn't pull away. Didn't step back. Didn't remember he had a wife standing 20 feet away with his beer getting warm in her hands. "Sarah." Elena waved me over, her smile bright and innocent. "Marcus was just telling me about the Italy trip. It sounds amazing." But Marcus hadn't told her about Italy. We'd only talked about it that morning at breakfast. I was sure of it. "When did you tell Elena about our anniversary plans?" I asked him later in the car. He paused too long. "I don't know, sometime this week?" She asked what we were up to this summer. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "She seemed really interested in the details," I said carefully. "Elena's always been curious about travel." "You know that." But I didn't know that. Elena had never shown interest in my trips before. Never asked about our romantic getaways or anniversary plans. Never touched my husband's arm while I watched from across a crowded party. "Maybe we should keep some things just between us," I suggested. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Elena's family, Sarah. I thought you wanted us all to be close." I did want that. But something felt wrong, like a photograph that's slightly out of focus. You can't quite put your finger on what's off, but you know it's there. That night, I lay awake listening to Marcus breathe, wondering why my sister knew about our anniversary trip. I found them at Rossetti's on a Thursday night in October. Marcus had texted me at 5, working late on the Morrison project. "Don't wait up, beautiful." Elena had called an hour later, breathless and excited. "Book club ran long tonight, but we picked the most amazing novel for next month." I was walking home from my evening yoga class when I saw them through the rain-streaked window. My husband and my sister, sharing tiramisu at table 7, our table, the one where Marcus had proposed 3 years ago. My legs stopped working. People pushed past me on the sidewalk, umbrellas knocking against my shoulders, but I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Elena was wearing the red dress I'd helped her pick out for her last date, the one that made her eyes look like emeralds. Marcus was feeding her with the same silver spoon he'd used to give me my first taste of wedding cake. Their fingers were intertwined across the white tablecloth. Elena threw her head back laughing at something he whispered, and Marcus looked at her the way he used to look at me, like she was the only person in the universe who mattered. The rain soaked through my jacket, but I couldn't feel the cold. All I could feel was my heart shattering into pieces so small they'd never fit back together. They were celebrating something. Marcus raised his wine glass, and Elena clinked hers against it with a smile so radiant it made me physically sick. What were they toasting? Their affair? My stupidity? The success of their lies? I stood there for 23 minutes. I counted every second on my phone's display, watching my entire world crumble through that restaurant window. Elena's hand rested on Marcus's cheek like she had every right to touch him. like he belonged to her. When they finally left, walking arm in arm toward Marcus's car, I followed them like a ghost. They drove to Elena's apartment. I watched from across the street as every light in her bedroom turned on, then off again 2 hours later. Marcus came home at midnight, smelling like Elena's jasmine perfume. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "Sorry I'm so late, baby. The Morrison project is killing me." I pretended to be asleep, but my eyes burned holes in the darkness. Every nerve in my body screamed the truth I couldn't accept. My husband was in love with my sister. My sister, the only family I had left, the only person besides Marcus who I trusted completely. The next morning, Marcus made me coffee with 2 sugars and a splash of cream, same as always. "Sleep well, beautiful?" he asked, kissing my cheek. "Like a baby," I lied. But something had died inside me during those 23 minutes outside Rossetti's. The naive wife who believed in forever love was gone. In her place was a woman who finally understood that the 2 people she loved most in the world had been playing her for a fool. I started planning my search of his things that same morning. Because if they were celebrating something last night, I needed to know what. I needed to know how deep this betrayal went. I needed to know if anything about my life had ever been real. For 3 weeks after finding those love letters, I became an actress in my own life. Every morning, I'd wake up screaming on the inside while my face stayed perfectly calm. I'd make Marcus his coffee, 2 sugars, splash of cream, watching him sip it while my hands trembled around my own mug. He'd kiss my forehead, and I'd feel like my skin was burning where his lips touched me. "You seem quiet lately, beautiful," he said one morning, concern creasing his brow. "Everything okay?" "Just tired," I'd whisper, forcing a smile. "Work's been crazy." But work wasn't crazy. I could barely function. I'd sit at my desk staring at spreadsheets that might as well have been written in ancient Greek, my mind replaying every lie, every moment I'd been too blind to see the truth. My coworkers started asking if I was sick. I'd lost 12 pounds without trying, my clothes hanging loose on a frame that felt like it was collapsing from the inside out. Elena called every day, her voice bright and cheerful. "How's my favorite sister? Want to grab lunch?" I'd make excuses, claiming headaches or deadlines, while my heart broke all over again. She sounded so normal, so loving. How could she speak to me like nothing had changed when she was destroying my entire world? The worst part was bedtime. Marcus would pull me close, spooning me like he had for 5 years, and I'd lie rigid in his arms wondering if he was thinking about her. Did he compare my body to Elena's? Did he wish I was her when he whispered "I love you" into my hair? I stopped eating dinner, claiming I wasn't hungry. Marcus would worry, trying to coax me to take just a few bites, and the tenderness in his voice made everything worse. How could he care for me while planning to leave me? How could he hold me while loving someone else? My reflection became a stranger. Hollow cheeks, dark circles under eyes that looked too big for my skull. I'd stare at myself in the bathroom mirror, wondering what Elena had that I didn't. She was younger, prettier, funnier. She could make Marcus laugh in ways I never could. Maybe I'd been fooling myself thinking someone like him could love someone like me forever. The shame was suffocating. I'd been so proud of our marriage, bragging to anyone who'd listen about my perfect husband. Now I felt like the whole world could see my failure written across my face. The naive foster kid who thought she'd finally found her happily ever after. But late at night, when Marcus's breathing settled into sleep and I knew he was probably dreaming of Elena, something else started growing in the darkness of our bedroom. Something cold and calculating and completely unlike the woman I used to be. I remembered Grandma Rose's stories about the Depression, about women who did whatever it took to survive. "Sometimes life breaks you, Sarah girl," she used to say. "But breaking can make you stronger if you let it." I was broken. Shattered into pieces so small I might never put them back together. But in that destruction, something new was being born. Something that would make Marcus and Elena regret the day they decided to betray me. They thought I was weak, gullible, A doormat who'd cry herself into submission and hand over everything they wanted. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The inheritance letter arrived on a gray Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after I'd stopped crying. $2 million. Plus Grandma Rose's property portfolio, 3 rental houses and the old farmhouse where she'd taught me to can peaches and spotliars. The money would transfer within 10 days. I stared at the legal documents spread across our kitchen table, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not the fake smile I'd been wearing like a mask, but something real and sharp and dangerous. Marcus found me reading the papers when he came down for breakfast. His eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Sarah, this is incredible. We're set for life." He pulled me into his arms, spinning me around our kitchen. "We should celebrate. Maybe call Elena, take her to dinner." "Of course," I said, my voice honey-sweet. "Elena should definitely hear about this." But while Marcus saw dollar signs, I saw something else entirely. I saw the weapon I needed to destroy them both. That afternoon, I made 3 phone calls. First, to the most ruthless divorce attorney in the state, a woman who'd made headlines for destroying cheating husbands. Second, to a private investigator who specialized in infidelity cases. Third, to my bank, setting up that joint account Marcus would soon beg me to create. The PI's name was Janet Morrison, and she had the eyes of a predator. "I'll need 2 weeks to build a case," she said, sliding her contract across the coffee shop table. "Photos, communications, financial records. Everything you'll need to bury them. Take 3 weeks," I told her. "I want this to be thorough." Marcus came home that night buzzing with excitement about our windfall. "We should put it in a joint account," he suggested casually. "Easier to manage that way." I pretended to consider it, watching him try to hide his eagerness. "You're probably right. But let's wait until after it transfers. I don't want to jinx anything." He agreed, but I caught him researching investment strategies on his laptop, probably calculating how much he'd walk away with when he left me for Elena. Elena started visiting more often, asking innocent questions about the inheritance. "It must feel amazing to have that kind of security," she said, curled up on my couch with tea I'd made her. "What will you do with it all?" "I'm thinking of making some big changes in my life," I told her, studying her face. "Getting rid of things that don't serve me anymore." She smiled, completely missing the threat. "That sounds healthy. Sometimes we hold on to things too long." Over the next 2 weeks, I became a different person. I cooked Marcus's favorite meals while recording our conversations. I invited Elena over for sister bonding time while photographing her texts. I played the perfect wife and sister while building their funeral pyre one piece of evidence at a time. Janet's reports started arriving. Photos of them at hotels, transcripts of phone calls, bank records showing Marcus had been paying for Elena's dinners and gifts with our joint credit card for months. But the most damaging evidence came from Elena herself. She'd kept every love letter Marcus had written her, every romantic text, every promise about their future together. My investigator had found them all. They thought they were so clever, so careful. They had no idea I was watching their every move, documenting their betrayal, preparing for the moment when their perfect little world would explode. The inheritance cleared on a Friday. Marcus suggested we celebrate with dinner at Rossetti's. "Perfect," I said. "Let me call Elena. This should be a family celebration." After all, they'd both earned what was coming. The first crack in their armor came 2 days after I opened the joint account. Marcus was pushing for full access to the inheritance funds, getting more aggressive about investment opportunities that would conveniently require his signature. "We should strike while the market's hot," he insisted, showing me portfolio options on his laptop. "You're right," I said, pulling up the bank app on my phone. "But look at this. The account requires dual authorization for any withdrawal over $5,000. Bank policy for large inheritances." His face went white. "What do you mean dual authorization?" "Both our signatures, every single time. For security. I smiled innocently while watching his dream of easy money crumble. Isn't it wonderful how protected our money is? That night, I heard him on the phone in the garage, voice tight with frustration. It's more complicated than we thought. Yes, she has to sign too. I don't know, maybe we need a different approach. Elena's visits became more frequent, more desperate. She'd ask probing questions about our finances, suggest romantic getaways that would cost exactly the amount Marcus could access alone. You two work so hard, she'd say. You deserve to splurge a little. But I was always one step ahead. When she suggested we take a sister's trip to Paris, I agreed enthusiastically, then showed her the travel insurance policy I'd purchased. If anything happens to either of us, all expenses get refunded to the estate. Isn't that smart? Her smile faltered for just a moment. Just long enough for me to see the predator behind her sweet sister act. The power shift was intoxicating. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Every conversation became a chess game, and I was finally winning. They'd underestimated me so completely, assuming I'd be the same naive woman who trusted blindly. But late at night, staring at myself in the bathroom mirror, I barely recognized the person looking back. When had my smile become so calculating? When had I learned to lie with such ease? You're becoming just like them, whispered a voice that sounded like Grandma Rose. This isn't who you are, Sarah girl. The doubt crept in during quiet moments. Was I turning into the kind of person who destroyed families? Was revenge worth losing myself? Then I'd remember Marcus feeding Elena tiramisu at our table. I'd think about the letters hidden in his sock drawer, the plans they'd made to take everything and leave me broken. I'd picture Elena's fake, concerned face asking about our financial future while carrying my husband's child. No. This wasn't about becoming like them. This was about justice. The private investigator called on a Thursday morning. I have everything you need, Janet said. Photos, recordings, financial records. When do you want to move? Not yet, I told her. I want to see how far they'll go first. Because the deeper they dug their own graves, the sweeter their destruction would be. Marcus was getting careless, staying out later, lying more boldly. Elena was pushing harder, her questions about the money becoming less subtle. They were getting desperate, and desperate people made fatal mistakes. I just had to wait for them to hang themselves with their own rope. The family dinner was scheduled for Sunday. Our parents would be there, excited to celebrate my good fortune. Marcus and Elena thought it would be the perfect opportunity to present a united front, maybe even suggest some family investment opportunities. They had no idea it would be their last supper. The family dinner started perfectly normal, too perfectly. Mom had made her famous roast, Dad was telling construction stories, and Marcus and Elena sat across from each other at our dining room table, careful not to make eye contact. They thought they were being so clever, so discreet. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart, Mom said, squeezing my hand. Grandma Rose would be thrilled knowing her money will help you and Marcus build your future. Actually, I said, setting down my wine glass, I have some news about that future. Elena's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Marcus's smile flickered. I've been thinking about family lately. About trust. About the people we choose to love. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the TV. And I discovered something beautiful about the people closest to me. The first photo filled the screen, Marcus and Elena kissing outside her apartment building, date stamped 3 weeks ago. Mom gasped. Dad's face went stone cold. Elena dropped her fork with a clatter. Sarah, I can explain, Marcus started. Please don't interrupt, I said calmly, clicking to the next image. This is just getting interesting. Photo after photo flashed by, romantic dinners, hotel visits, them holding hands at the park where Marcus and I had our first date. Elena's face drained of all color. These are fake, Elena whispered. Sarah, you have to believe me. Should I play the audio next? I asked, my voice sweet as poison. You have such a lovely voice when you're telling Marcus how much you love him. The recording filled the room. Elena's breathless whispers, Marcus's promises about their future together, their discussions about timing my divorce to maximize their payout from the inheritance. After she signs the papers, we'll have everything we need, Elena's voice echoed from the speakers. Poor Sarah, she'll probably give you half just to end the pain quickly. Mom stood up so fast her chair fell backward. Elena Marie, what have you done? It's not what it looks like. Elena burst into tears, but they were the wrong kind of tears, desperate, guilty tears, not innocent ones. Marcus tried a different approach. Sarah, you drove me to this. You've been distant for months. Stop. My voice cut through his excuses like glass. Just stop lying. Dad's voice was deadly quiet. Get out of my house, Marcus. And Elena, I turned to my sister, my heart breaking all over again despite everything. Congratulations on the pregnancy. Must be exciting, carrying another woman's husband's baby. The room exploded. Mom started crying. Dad started yelling. Elena collapsed into hysterical sobs, confessing through her tears about the affair, the baby, the plans to steal my inheritance. Marcus tried to blame me one last time. You're destroying our family over jealousy. No, I said, standing up with a dignity that surprised even me. You destroyed our family the moment you chose her over our marriage vows. As they left, Elena supported by our furious parents, Marcus stammering pathetic apologies, I felt something strange wash over me. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Peace. For the first time in months, I could finally breathe. The fallout happened faster than I expected. Within 48 hours, the entire town knew. Mom couldn't help herself, she called her sister, who called her neighbor, who called everyone at the church. By Wednesday, I couldn't buy groceries without seeing the pitying looks and whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by. Marcus lost his job on Thursday. His boss, Mr. Henderson, was a family friend who'd known me since I was a teenager. I can't have that kind of man representing my company, he told me when he called to apologize for not seeing Marcus's true character sooner. Elena's world crumbled even faster. Her art gallery job disappeared when the owner, a woman who'd been through her own messy divorce, decided Elena wasn't the kind of person she wanted representing her business. The pregnancy made finding new work nearly impossible. By Friday, Elena was calling me, sobbing into the phone. Sarah, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I listened to her beg for forgiveness, for money, for anything that might save her from the consequences of her choices. Part of me, the sister who'd loved her for 26 years, wanted to help. But the woman who'd been betrayed by her closest family knew better. Elena, I said quietly, I hope you find the life you thought you wanted. Then I hung up. The divorce was final within 6 weeks. Marcus got nothing, the prenup I'd insisted on 5 years ago, plus the evidence of his infidelity, made sure of that. The inheritance stayed exactly where it belonged, with me. I thought betrayal had broken me, shattered me into pieces too small to repair. But sitting in my empty house, surrounded by the silence that had once terrified me, I realized something unexpected. I was healing. Not the quick, surface healing of a bandaged wound, but the deep, structural rebuilding of someone who'd been torn down to their foundation and was constructing something stronger in its place. The first week alone, I cried every night. The second week, I only cried twice. By the third week, I was sleeping through the night and waking up curious about what the day might bring. I started small. Redecorated the bedroom, removing every trace of Marcus's presence. Painted the walls a soft blue that made me feel calm instead of the beige he'd preferred. Bought plants that filled the house with life and color. Then I got bolder. Enrolled in the pottery class I'd always wanted to try. Booked a trip to Italy, alone, on my terms, to see the places I'd dreamed about. applied for the job at the nonprofit I'd been too scared to pursue while playing the perfect wife. My parents called every day at first, worried about me rattling around in that big house by myself. But gradually, their concern shifted to something else, pride, maybe, or recognition of the woman I was becoming. "You're stronger than I ever knew, sweetheart," Mom said during one of our calls. "I'm sorry it took something this terrible to show us." The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus and Elena had tried to destroy me to build their new life together. Instead, they destroyed themselves while accidentally setting me free. 3 months after that horrible family dinner, I heard Elena had moved to Portland. The baby wasn't Marcus's after all. DNA tests revealed another lie in her web of deceptions. Marcus was living in a studio apartment, working construction for a company that paid half what Henderson's had. Their betrayal had cost them everything. But it had given me something I'd never expected. Myself. Finally, completely, unapologetically myself. A year later, I found myself holding another letter, this one addressed to me, in Elena's desperate handwriting. Asterisk Sarah, I'm broke and alone. The baby needs surgery I can't afford. Please, I'm begging you. He's innocent in all this. Help me save my son. Asterisk. I set the letter on my kitchen table, the same table where I'd once read Marcus's love notes to my sister, where my world had shattered into 1,000 pieces. But this time, my hands weren't trembling. This time, I wasn't the broken woman who'd collapsed on bathroom tiles, drowning in betrayal. I was someone else entirely. The phone rang. Elena's number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her sob through an apology that came a year too late. She'd lost everything, her job, her apartment, her dignity. Marcus had abandoned them both the moment he learned the baby wasn't his. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who would have rushed to help despite the pain. That woman had been kind but naive, generous but foolish. This woman was something different. Something stronger. I wrote a check for $50,000, enough for the surgery, enough to give an innocent child a chance. But I included a note that made my boundaries crystal clear. This is the last time I clean up your mess. Don't ever contact me again. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't destruction, it's becoming so completely, unapologetically yourself that their betrayal becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. I mailed the check, then deleted Elena's number from my phone forever. After all, Grandma Rose always said, the best revenge is a life well lived, and a lesson well taught. Some letters destroy you. Others set you free. I finally knew the difference.